So thanks for joining me today. Today we're going to talk about business rules, and basically this is kind of a rework of the presentation I did last year, but we're going to talk about the new designer, etc. that is in Dynamics 365, so that'll be the new addition here. And we can talk about how we use these things, etc. So this is me. I'm a Dynamics CRM architect. You can find me at mitch@xrmcoaches.com or on Twitter or LinkedIn. Show you a little bit about the webinar there. So if you want to ask a question, just put it in the question box. If you want to speak, just raise your hand. Anytime you want to do that, I can unmute your mic. So we'll do that. Again, training roadmap for this year. So still moving along on some of these things. I'm about to show you a slide that doesn't make any sense, except it does. Okay, business rule basics. We're going to cover configuration usage, and then we're going to go make some business rules. How about that? That'll be fun. Okay, so who were business rules created for? Well, here is a problem that they were trying to solve. A lot of people use JavaScript to configure, to make dynamic user interface changes with CRM, or Dynamics 365 now. And what they wanted to do is get away from having to actually learn how to write code and be able to do it without the coding mechanism. So it's now called a citizen developer. You may see that term in some of the other webinars or on some of Microsoft's materials. So for non-developers, for administrators, and even for developers, if you want to actually create something that doesn't require you to write a line of code. This actually translates into JavaScript behind the scenes. That's how everything is working. But this allows you to create an environment that you can work with that has just a GUI user interface. So where do these things actually happen, and what limitations do you have? So it happens when the form loads or when a field value change. They don't run when the record is saved unless the scope of the rule is at the entity level, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. They only work with fields. It does not take into account any kind of environmental information, such as the state of the form or anything else like that. So it only works with the fields themselves. You could set the value of a field using a business rule, but the on-change event handler will not run. Now, I need to verify that because I don't know if that would have changed. They almost did that a couple of revisions ago, but we gave them such bad feedback that they decided not to. And because what that would have been is the on-change event would have fired anytime the value changed, not just when it was changed manually. Because what happens is when you change it programmatically, you know what you're doing. You don't want to actually cause a problem. If the business rule references a field that is not on the form, it just won't run, which is a good thing instead of causing an error that freaks people out. Charlie asked, does the business rule trigger when the workflow changes a field? Charlie, that is a great question. I don't know the answer to that, so I'll have to find that out. I think if you're at the entity level, it will, but if you're at the form level, which means you have to have the form open, the answer is no. But that's a good follow-up question. Thank you. Okay, so whole number of fields that use time zone, duration, or language will not appear in the rule editor because you really can't do anything with them anyway. Like any of the metadata stuff, if you're using Dynamics CRM for mobile or the tablet, it will download the stuff whenever you first start it up. And so you'll have to basically, if you have metadata changes, it'll have to make sure you sync. So if it's not syncing correctly, you may have to actually make it manually resync. Basically, for the lookup field, the primary text value is when it's set, it's always matched the value of the rule definition. So that's one of the weird things in there. So where do you get to these business rule things? A couple different places. The first is you go to customizations, and then under, if you expand the entity, like an account here, you'll see a business rules section. So you can add one there. Or if you happen to have the form editor open, you can actually click on the ribbon and click on business rules, and there will be a business rules explorer, just like the field explorer, and you can see or edit your rules from there. So either one, depending on where you're at within your development cycle, can be done. Where should they run? So they will run either at the entity level, which runs on the server, or at the form level. So if you're going with the form level, you could specify all forms or just specific forms. So what that means is if you have a business rule that only applies to a certain form, you can actually specify that this only goes to that. So this is the probably maybe a contact or maybe an older one. So there would be an information form and maybe just like an account or a contact form or any of the others. So you can just pick the ones you want or all forms. Now, if you run it at the entity level, like I said, it happens on the server. Now, I haven't verified lately if they changed it, but what would happen previously is if you had the business rule applied at the server level, it would fire whenever the condition was met to make it fire as specified, again, at the server level without the record being open. So, Charlie, I think that takes care of that one question, but again, we need to verify it. But what it also did is it also ran whenever you open the form. So it actually ran twice. Now, this produced a problem that I don't think has been corrected. And what would happen is people would open a record, and unbeknownst to them, a business rule had run and updated the data. So they would go to leave the record, and they would get a warning saying, hey, would you like to save your changes? And well, like I haven't made any changes. And again, the business rule does not allow you to define any environmental criteria, so it runs all the time. So you can't check to see the state of the rule or not, or the form. So what can we do with a business rule? We can check for conditions. We can lock or unlock a field. We can show an error message. We can set a default value, set the visibility, set the business requirement level, set the value. And then finally, the new one, we can actually set a recommendation. That's a new thing in Dynamics 365. Our conditions are pretty much if then else conditions, as you can see from the box on the left. It works on either the entity or on a business process. So if you're using business process flows, you can actually have it configured to where when a business process flow changes, you can actually have it run the business rule. This is a new thing for Dynamics 365. And so you specify, as you can see in the rules, the source, which is an entity or business process, the field, the operator, the type, and then the value that you want. So depending on what the value is, it will actually run the rule or not. And then so you define it on that box on the right. At the bottom is a textual representation of what it says. So in this case, credit hold equals yes. So if the credit hold is equal yes, it's going to return true. Otherwise, it's going to return false. On the left-hand side, you'll see kind of the text view of that if-then-else statement. So what actions can we perform? We can display, we can show an error message at the field level. We can set the value of a field. We can set it to a formula or to just a static value. We can change the requirement level. So we have, of course, required, not required, and recommended, or optional as they call it now. It only works, visibility you can also set, but it only works on field. So you cannot set the visibility of a tab or a section at this point in time. That would be a really neat feature if they could do that. We can set the default value. So this is the value that you would like set on the field when you open it up. So anytime you set the value, you can either set it to a static value or you can set it to the value of another field. You can lock or unlock the field. So what that means is read-only or editable is really what that means. So if it's read-only, of course, it's locked. If it's editable, it's unlocked. You can add a recommendation. And again, this is a new thing. So on fields, we can actually put warning messages or error messages, etc. So a recommendation is actually a new thing that we have that allows you to add, it's another icon, and when they click on the icon, it will pop up this box. It has a title, and then it has some information. So in this case, okay, we need to verify the credit, and then it tells you what to do, and then there's a button that you can say, hey, do it or don't do it, either one. And if you do it, you can actually tell it to go do something else. And we'll cover that here in a second. So what are the advantages of business rules? Well, first off, they're pretty easy to create. Again, with the Dynamics 365, we'll get into the designer. So it's all done through a pretty easy to use interface. No JavaScript required. Can run at the server level. It runs on multiple devices and platforms. This was a big deal, especially earlier on, because some JavaScript would not run on some of the devices like the tablet or the phone. So this is a way around that. And this was actually probably one of the primary reasons that business rules were actually created. So again, some disadvantages to this is sometimes it's really hard to understand where your business logic lies, especially if you're a consultant and you come in and like, okay, where is this stuff? You go and look at the JavaScript, and a lot of times you forget that people could have created business rules because they're not developers. Like, okay, well, there's no JavaScript, so there's, they haven't done any development. And then you notice weird things happening or, things like that. If you go look at the business rules, you're like, oh, look at that. There's a problem because you've got a rule that's running that's doing stuff behind the scenes. So what happens is when you look at all the different customization points, you could have JavaScript doing things, you could have business rules doing things, you could have plugins, you could have synchronous or asynchronous workflows. All of these things could be interacting with the user and or the data to cause things to happen. Sooner or later, you will also get into a fight amongst these things because the one wants to run before the other one or after or something like that. So anytime that you do any kind of customization of any of these methods, you really need to have a really good plan for mapping out what technology is doing what so that you don't run into a conflict that leads to some kind of, unpleasant situation. I'll put this link in the show notes. I'll email you later today. But basically, there's a good set of documentation in the help and training section that points to all of that. So let's go and look at our stuff here. Find it. Okay, so this is the business rule editor. So for Dynamics 365, we have 3 new editors. We have processes, business rules, business process flows, business rules, and the sitemaps. They all kind of have this similar editor. So we enter a name as we would like. We can add a description. It starts off with a condition. So this is the true branch right here to the left, to the right. And then the false branch is at the bottom. As you can see, it's waiting for you to actually start making settings here, and it will show you the text view of that. Here is how we can add other components. So this is just a drag and drop interface. So let's say that we want to set the field value. We just drag that. As you'll notice on the other component that is there, you'll see these little boxes with pluses on them. So if we hover close to that, you'll see that it turns white. So that's where, okay, oh, you actually locked it on. So now I know where you're going. Okay. So what we do is we can set a condition. So you can give it a name. You check the entity. We're on the account entity, so that's pretty much what we got. I'm going to run this on the entity and not a business process. And let's do it on the account number. Say if it does not contain data, I would like it to, let's put a 1 in there. Sorry. If it does not contain data, then I would like to put in the account number field a value of 1. Okay. If it does contain data, then just do nothing. Okay. Now, did I do that right? I think I did not do it. Maybe I get that wrong. Let me put it back over here. Nope, that was right. I'm looking down here and see what it says here. So if condition is true, that's very interesting. I think I just saw a little bug. Anybody else see that where that value wasn't there earlier, or am I imagining things? One more time. Number. Okay. Value. It's not contain data. Okay, there's that. Apply that. I'll go back to my components. I'm going to drag over set field value. Then, okay, there we go. Perfect. Account number to 1. Okay, that's what I want. Just want to make sure. I think I forgot to push a button or something. So anyway, so the text view of the rule lets you kind of see what it's doing. So if the account number does not contain data, then I want to set the account number to 1. Okay, this was actually the way that it looked in Dynamics 365. Sorry, Dynamics CR in 2016. Is the way that the designer worked. Is this is how it works. So when you put the if in there, this is this bit, you would end up with a sentence like this that you could just have editable parts of. Okay, so once you do that, you can save it. I'm gonna give it a name just for giggles. Okay, so value. Save that. And the next step of this process is to validate that this is actually working. So if I click validate, okay, it actually validated, and it gave me some other things to do. So I can save this as a new record. I can save and close. I can activate it. So if we activate it, this will actually put it into practice, just like using workflows. Okay, if I go back to the accounts, create a new account. Just realize I'm missing something. Who can tell me what I'm missing? Nobody? What about an account number? It'd be really handy for my demo to see my account number there. Okay, save, publish. New account. Okay, notice the value there. Okay, so we opened the form. The rule was, go back here, if account number does not contain data, then set the account number to 1. Okay, now that sounds kind of silly, doesn't it? So let's go deactivate it. So what you would probably do is, not do something like that. But you can see, when we did that, this is the easiest way for you to do it. So again, we didn't have to do anything. Nothing showed up on the screen. No JavaScript was written, and it filled it out automatically. Okay, so that's the simplest example of what we have to work with. Okay, so let's close that. Let's go open a new one, create a new one. Okay, so we can add things from here, or we can drag and drop from the right-hand side. So that's one of the things you can do. So let's try to do something like, let's do show error message. That work? There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my condition. So I'm going to say is if the credit hold, the credit limit is greater or less than, it's less than 10,000. Then I'm going to show an error message on the account name field says save that. Oh, look at this. I have a validation error. I have one error is found in the process, which was this process. There, you haven't added an action for the condition. Well, look at that. So where would I add the action? Anybody know? I don't have a positive action over here. That's right. Try that. Try that one more time. Okay, there we go. So basically what happened is it didn't take my application. So basically when you add something to it, you actually hit apply and it actually will tell it to go. Try it. So how are we going to get around this? How about if we move this up here, and in that way, is it less than 10,000? Yes, let's try that. Validate it. Okay, that worked. Validation successful. Let's save it. Activate it. And let's go down here and put the credit limit in of $2,500. That's $1,500. And I'm going to save this. Okay, so that didn't work. So let's see why it didn't work. Let's go look at it again. Now, let's look at this. So what happened was I changed this, or I set it up to where the rule was credit limit is less than or equal to value of 10,000. If it is less than, then I put an error message on the account. I'm running this on all forms. Okay, so I'm going to deactivate that. And I'm going to change the scope to be entity. Let's see what happens. Okay, activate it. I'm going to create a new account. Do the same exact thing, put my credit limit at 2,500. Now you notice I have a problem. This account does not have a high enough credit limit. Okay? Now, who can tell me the condition that I put my form in right now? Anybody know? Okay, you see this error message down here, which is actually equal to the error message up here. Can I save this record with this error message? Anybody? Wheeler? Sanford? No. Aaron? Looks like no. You're right. Okay. So now what happens is, which it's just kind of weird. I'm not really sure this is a design feature or a quirk. Okay. But what this is an error condition when you put what is called a notification. So when you put a notification that is a type error on a field, it's the same as CRM putting a thing on there. So what we've done is we've actually blocked this field because of a condition down here. Now the problem is I can't save the record now. So if I delete this value, it doesn't do any good. So the way I have to set this is I have to go to syndicate 11. I have to set that to 11,000. Then it does that. Okay. So now we have to figure out, how do we get around this? I don't know. I haven't thought about this enough. So yeah. So Red Hat says yes, you cannot save it with an error message. So yeah. So this is what was kind of funny, and I didn't really realize that this was true because I really never. I don't want to actually use business rules. Quite honestly, I use JavaScript for almost everything. And so what happens is you can actually set a condition on the form that will prevent the user from saving the record. Okay, so be very, very careful how you use these things. Well, yeah, the count is a mandatory field, but it wouldn't matter. I mean, the mandatory field is complete, but the error message state is what was causing it. Yeah, you can put it on a different field, but that defeats the purpose of how this rule works. I mean, you can do it. Basically that was really a warning is what that was. Okay, so let's go back to our rule, deactivate it. So whenever we display a location, so again, this is an error message, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this, and I am going to add a new component called a recommendation. That recommendation has a couple of components to it. The first off is we have a field just like we did before, and I'm going to specify the account name and a title. Oops. Apply that, and then I have an action there. And basically it's going to make me do something, and I think I can do it without it. Let me validate this. Oops. Yeah, 2 errors. Yeah. So I don't want to do any of these things. So what I'll do is set that credit limit to 0. It's a silly thing to do, but that'll get away my error. Okay, validate it. It works. Activate it. Let's go back. Create a new account. Already noticed we have a little bubble there. Click on that bubble. Warning, this account does not have enough credit. And at this point, I can apply it or dismiss it. So what this is doing is it's going to take 2 actions from the user, an application and then a dismissal. So if I dismiss it, that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to set this credit limit to just 100 level. Then I'm going to go up here and I'm going to say apply this. And you'll notice that it zeroes this out because that's what I told it to do. Okay, so the way that you would use this is you would, this is more or less a miniature prompt to the user. So they don't have to push on it. Like I said, if I clicked on this, it saves the record without a problem. It's a helpful warning there. Very good. Okay, whatever that meant. So anyway, it's something that I can do there, or let's see, go back over here. Let's see what saves it. Okay, Now, I wonder if that error message was because of that error, that warning. Okay, note to self. Okay, so that is producing an unexpected situation in my mind. Sync workflow enter rule name terminated with warning. Oh, wow. Look who has a blog post in the making. Okay, here is an enter rule name which corresponds to this. Who can tell me what this error message means? Let me know who can do it. So now you want to answer the question? So now go ahead. You want to talk? No? Anybody else? Anybody have any idea what this is? Nobody? Oh, come on. Somebody has an idea. How many of you have ever created a synchronous workflow? Let me see, show hands. 1, 2, 3. There's a few of you. Okay, great. Okay, so here's what's happening behind the scenes. It's actually creating a synchronous workflow. And it's calling in a rule name, which is the name of our thing up here. So what we'll do is just to prove that I'm not lying to you, I'll go and show you. Save that. Activate it. Okay. So I am going to go back here. That's fine. Account. Save it. That's saved. I did activate that. Okay, now I'm really confused. Okay, that one works. That's very fascinating. Okay, let me go show you what I was talking about. Here is a secret. Process. Okay. When you go to look for a process, it has all this really weird stuff in here. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this out, delete this clause here, so it's only going after definitions. And you're going to find some fascinating stuff in here. So let's look at my category, which is going to be business rule. So I think I'm going to show it to you. I may not be able to. Maybe it didn't do what I thought it did. Yes, test recommendation. No, it doesn't. Okay, maybe I can't do it on this. Those. Shoot. There we go. Category. Not working. Okay, I lied to you. I found this other day for case creation rules that actually creates things. So I think it actually creates a workflow behind the scenes, but I don't see it there. So I'm not sure why it's not there. Sync workflow. Okay, so if I did a refresh, did that increase? I don't see any workflows at all on this. What's that? That. We're still getting an error, so I'm going to have to research that. I don't know why that would happen. But basically, yeah, so one thing it did behind the scenes is it created a small workflow, synchronous workflow, and then use that. That's what they're kind of doing. Like I said, I found this with the case creation rules. It was exactly the same thing. So basically, it creates a workflow behind the scenes. It actually does the work, and that's exactly what this one is doing. So I should have a workflow called that, but I don't see it. I'm pretty sure if I go to workflows, I wouldn't see it either. Just for giggles. Yeah, there's no workflows here at all. Interesting. Okay, well, maybe it didn't work with that. Okay, so now I got to find out what that is. So I'll let you guys know later on what I find. Anyway, so again, this drag and drop stuff. Here's a really cool thing. See this snapshot button? Check this out. Click snapshot, and it's like, oh, would you like to open this file? I'm like, sure. What file? This file that you can use for your documentation. So this shows you, now again, it doesn't see any details, but this will show you a literal graphic representation of your flow. Debbie asks if you have two business rules, the same name activated. I don't think that matters, Debbie. I think so, yeah, because it goes off of GUID. So the name is for us. Everything that it does is based on the ID. Okay. So again, the big thing here is there's a few things that get you in trouble. It's really good for setting values, for setting visibility, for setting business required or not. So like if I wanted to put business required here, change that field to, so I go down to credit limit and I change that to required. Okay, so that's a way to do that. So again, just basic stuff here. If you're into JavaScript, what I see a lot of people doing, not a lot, I guess, but I see some people, what they're actually working on is they don't want to have code out there. And so they want to do everything through this. But again, as you can see, the condition, there's no environmental stuff. So one of the things that, like I said, that example I gave you earlier, I want to see if I'm in a new record, which means I click the new button, or an existing record, which means I open one up. And with that, or maybe I want to see if it's read-only. Because, if you didn't know this, you can actually modify a read-only record programmatically, and then when the user tries to navigate away from that, they will get an error message saying that you changed it. Well, how the heck can you change a read-only record? You can't. Well, you could. And so that's kind of some of the things. You have to be very careful about your use of ND versus the forms. So again, all forms are just the ones that make sense. So there's lots of really good things that the business rules handle. Again, if you're not a JavaScript programmer, you don't have to be, because these components here will do most of the stuff. So 90% or 80% of the stuff that we do as JavaScript developers is pretty much setting field values, showing and hiding fields, making fields read-only or editable, setting the business requirement level. That does most of the things we do. So, we can add the show error message, but, if you need more than that, you can do that. So I hope in the next couple of revisions of CRM or Dynamics 365, they'll actually add more capabilities, because if you look at the JavaScript object model and you look at what business rules can do, there's no comparison. I mean, there's a lot that's in the object model that they don't give us access to. Okay. So anyway, so new designer, this is really good for us. Like I said, you can draw stuff out. Don't forget you have to basically do a validation before you can actually activate it. I'll tell you where your errors are. Any questions on any of this stuff? Nothing? So if there are no questions, how are you guys using this? Or are you using this? Charlie said, can you set a priority on a business rule in the same field? No, Charlie. Oh, you mean, Charlie, I'm assuming you're talking about when you, which one runs first? The answer is no, you cannot. Gloria says, not using it yet, but will soon. Gina's like, can you use error message for warnings? No, Gina, that's what the irritating thing is. No, the error message is exactly what it says, error message. So if I put this right here, all I have is the field and the thing. So what they should have done, if it was me, and nobody asked me, so there we go, they should have a third thing here that's typed, because if you didn't know that, so let me go see this add notification thing here. I was just looking this up a while ago. So there are 3 different types of notifications here. They had a picture of it. Not. So set notification. So it's one of them is information, one is error, and then we have recommendation, which is now the third type. That's what I would have done, is I would just had one control here or one component that said show message, and then I set the type, because it's kind of useful, I think. Okay, because sometimes, like, hey, there's a thing you need to be aware of on this field, so that's good. Joseph asked, I think we'll be able to show hide sections or subgrids soon using instead of using JavaScript. I have no clue, Joseph. I mean, why they haven't built it in, I don't know. I mean, it's exactly the same thing. So the show, the hide works exactly the same for fields, tabs, and sections. So I don't know why they don't build it in. They should. Yeah, Rob says he uses it to basically show accounts versus partners and associated accounts and stuff. That's good. Well, Sanford said be nice to show a notification on the forum. That's also true. So if you guys didn't know that, so if when you have a forum open, there's a notification area at the very top. I'm sure you've probably seen it, but not really probably been paying attention to it. But there's an area up here right above the form body itself that is a notification area. You can set that. It's exactly the same as setting it let's see. Can't type. Notification. Control. But yeah, at the page level, there is a what's that going to be there? Go notification. Yeah, so basically the page level has an error, a warning, and an information. Those each have different icons. So basically that allows you to set that depending on what you want. And again, it shows up above the data in this area here. And again, that's just a way of setting it so that, that example I gave while I was playing around with the credit limit. Probably what you would officially do is you would put it here as a notification. Unfortunately, that's a JavaScript issue. That's the only way we have access to that. So you'll have to do that. So if the credit limit was below a certain level or not defined, you would put a notification saying, hey, you need to define this, or you can set it to required and make them fill it out, one of the two. So Sanford says we could create a solution that includes a field in the script, and when the non-tech creates uh, use it to populate a field with a message, and then the script fires and sets a message on the form. Yeah, you could do that. It might be a bit much. I mean, quite honestly, that would be the same as just putting, a description field right here, because that's what a lot of people do, just put a description field. That would work. So, any other questions on this? Anything else you guys want to see? No. So anyway, moral of the story here is we've got a new designer. This is really cool. I cannot wait for this designer to be put into the workflow editor, or replace the workflow editor, because that will give us just a lot of good fun stuff. But for now, that's what we got. So hopefully, the next couple versions we can see some updates to this. That would be great.